In 2026, global attention once again turned toward the Middle East as Iran used one of its most powerful tools, oil and energy control, to respond to mounting pressure from the United States and its allies. Although Iran does not directly export crude oil to the United States, its influence over global oil supply routes has caused serious economic consequences for America and the wider world. By limiting oil movement, threatening shipping routes, and using its strategic position near the Strait of Hormuz, Iran has created instability in global energy markets. This instability has resulted in higher oil prices, inflation, trade disruptions, and economic stress, especially for oil-dependent economies. This article explains how Iran's oil strategy works, why the U.S. is affected, and what this means for the future of global energy and geopolitics. 1. Iran's oil power. Why it matters. Iran holds one of the largest proven oil reserves in the world. For decades, oil has been the backbone of Iran's economy, funding government spending, infrastructure, social programs, and defense. Despite facing heavy U.S. sanctions, Iran has continued to sell oil, mainly to Asian markets, by using alternative shipping networks, discounted pricing, and indirect trade routes. Oil remains Tehran's most effective economic and political weapon. When diplomatic pressure increases or military threats rise, Iran often turns to oil as leverage. 2. Iran is not selling oil to the U.S. So why is America affected? A common misunderstanding is that Iran stops selling oil to America. In reality, the U.S. has not imported Iranian oil since 1979. However, the U.S. economy is deeply connected to global oil markets. When Iran disrupts oil flows anywhere in the world, prices rise everywhere, including in the United States. Key reasons. America suffers. Oil prices are set globally, not locally. Higher crude prices increase fuel and transport costs. Inflation rises when energy becomes expensive. Manufacturing and logistics costs increase, consumer prices go up. So even without direct trade, Iran's oil actions hit American households and businesses hard. 3. The Strait of Hormuz, Iran's strongest card. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important oil choke points on Earth. Around 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow waterway every day. Iran sits along this route. In 2026, Iran used naval patrols, inspections, warnings, and indirect threats to slow down or intimidate oil shipping through the strait. Even small disruptions caused massive fear in energy markets. Effects of Hormuz disruption. Oil prices surged globally. Insurance costs for tankers increased. Shipping delays hit supply chains. Energy markets became unstable. For the United States, this meant higher fuel prices, inflation pressure, and economic uncertainty. 4. Rising oil prices and inflation in the U.S. As Iran restricted oil flow and tensions rose, global oil prices increased sharply. This created a chain reaction in the U.S. economy. Impact on America. Gasoline prices increased nationwide. Transportation costs rose for goods and services. Food prices increased due to higher logistics costs. Inflation worsened, affecting interest rates. Consumer spending slowed. Energy is a foundation of modern economies. When oil becomes expensive, everything becomes expensive. 5. Sanctions versus reality. Why Iran still has power for years. The United States relied on economic sanctions to weaken Iran's oil exports. While sanctions reduced Iran's profits, they did not eliminate its oil trade. Iran adapted by selling oil at discounted prices, using shadow fleets of tankers, trading with non-Western partners, hiding cargo origins. As a result, Iran still earns billions from oil while retaining leverage over global energy markets. Ironically, sanctions sometimes increased Iran's motivation to weaponize oil rather than reduce its influence. 6. Global economic damage beyond America. Iran's oil restrictions did not only affect the U.S. Global consequences included energy shortages in Europe and Asia, currency pressure in developing countries, stock market volatility worldwide, increased trade costs, political pressure on oil-importing nations. Countries dependent on Gulf oil were forced to seek alternative suppliers at higher costs. 7. Oil as a political weapon. Iran's strategy shows that oil is no longer just an economic resource. It is a geopolitical weapon. By controlling supply routes rather than supply volume, Iran avoided direct war, created global pressure on Washington, forced diplomatic engagement, shifted power dynamics. This strategy allowed Iran to counter U.S. military and economic power with geography and energy leverage. 8. Why the U.S. cannot easily stop Iran. Despite having one of the strongest militaries in the world, the U.S. faces limits. Closing Hormuz by force risks full-scale war. Military escalation could spike oil prices further. Allies fear economic collapse. Global trade would be severely damaged. As a result, America often must choose between economic pain or military escalation. 9. Long-term risks for the global energy system. Iran's actions exposed major weaknesses in the global energy system: overdependence on narrow trade routes, lack of energy diversification, political instability affecting supply, weaponization of resources. This has renewed calls for renewable energy investment, strategic oil reserves, alternative shipping routes, regional energy security agreements. 10. Future scenarios. Scenario 1. Diplomatic settlement. Iran eases restrictions in exchange for sanctions relief. Scenario 2. Prolonged tension, oil markets remain unstable, prices fluctuate. Scenario 3. Escalation. Any major clash could shut Hormuz completely, causing global economic shock. Conclusion. Iran's decision to restrict oil movement has shown that energy power can rival military power. While the United States remains a global superpower, it is still vulnerable to oil price shocks and energy instability. The 2026 crisis proves one clear lesson. In a globalized world, controlling energy routes can hurt even the strongest economies. Until global energy dependence is reduced, oil-rich and strategically located countries like Iran will continue to shape world politics.